So it has been a good minute since my last video, and one of the reasons for that is I was having some PC problems, which actually leads to this video and part two. This is going to be a two-parter because we have a ton to cover. Graphic settings, what improves your FPS, what decreases your FPS, and more importantly, why you want to actually run higher graphic settings to not only improve your FPS, but the overall playability. I'll explain all of that, plus a whole lot more next. This video is brought to you by Cammus and their new C12 direct drive steering wheel. The Cammus C12 direct drive is the ultimate value direct drive at 12 Newton meters. The most compact 12 Newton meter wheel on the market. It uses an external rotor design, resulting in lower moment of inertia, which makes the force feedback stronger, more detailed, and more responsive. With a smaller design and a bigger experience, the Cammus C12 has a multifunctional display, 7 encoders, and 14 mappable buttons. Also, the Cammus C12 steering wheel can be interchanged with any standard 6x70mm steering wheel pattern. The Cammus C12 can be used for a multitude of sim racing titles out there, including ACC, American Truck Simulator, F122, iRacing, and more. Learn more about the Cammus C12 and how you can get yours today by clicking the link down in the description below. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brennan here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, we're going to be diving into the iRacing graphic settings. Now, these settings, or what we're going to cover, is whether you've got an Intel CPU, an AMD CPU, NVIDIA graphics card, Radeon graphics card, it does not matter, all right? These settings are going to basically help you because we're focusing primarily on the iRacing settings. Now, I'm going to break this up into two parts. Part one, this video, we're going to be covering the shadows, okay? Because those are huge when it comes to the actual playability of your system, shadows and anti-aliasing, okay? Just because those seem to be the biggest effect in all the testing I've done, and I've done a ton of testing. I benchmarked like crazy. I did daytime, nighttime, NASCAR Cup Series, oval racing, and even some dirt testing. I did not do road just because road racing is going to be also similar to the NASCAR stuff, okay, the way that I benchmarked it. If you are doing any type of iRacing stuff, these settings can help you. One thing I did not test, just so you know, is the rain settings. I think it's the SSAO settings in there, which has to do with the rain and the puddles and stuff like that. What I would recommend for you with that is optimize the stuff that we're going to cover in here. Once you've got that optimized, then you can play with that setting. Now, just some context so you guys know why I'm doing this and how I came to this, because I've done graphic settings videos like this before. I did them probably a year, maybe closer to 2 years ago now. And I'll put a link down in the description below to those videos. Maybe have a little thing pop up on the screen. I don't know which side it pops up on here, but I'll put like a little card or whatever those are called. But back then, the biggest hit to your graphics was the dynamic objects, the shadows, the dynamic object shadowing, which is essentially, if you think about a car going around the track, the shadow moving as the car moves, the sun's stationary, the car moves, the shadow is going to move. That was the biggest hit. That's not the case anymore. The biggest hit to your graphics now is going to be the AA samples. Hands down, not even close. Using that, cranking that up is going to crush your FPS. And here's the deal, it doesn't improve anything. Nothing. There's nothing that it improves. If you have those jagged triangles that you see, them jagged edges, and you're like, dude, I want to get rid of that. That's driving me nuts. How do I? You can't. You can't. There's not a setting in there that's going to get rid of that. That's as good as it gets. I tested this every which way possible. There's no getting rid of it. There's not. Okay, if there is some combination of settings out there that gets rid of it, please share it with me, because I tried everything that I could think of and could not get rid of it. I couldn't get rid of it. The only thing that I found is trying to get rid of it crushed my FPS and made my system literally unplayable. Now, I was having some major stuttering issues. major stuttering issues. If you watched any of my live streams over the last few months, it was getting really bad and it was driving me nuts. To the point to where a few days ago, I mean, maybe a week ago, I was ready to sell this system behind me and buy a new one and build a new one. That's where I had gotten to it. So it was like, look, there's got to be something going on here. I got to figure this out. I tried DDU, uninstalling all the drivers, doing clean installs of everything for not only graphics drivers but audio drivers. I tried different audio settings. I tried going back to previous graphics drivers. I tried different BIOS systems, or different BIOS versions, which actually led to even more problems as I updated the BIOS. Because if you've been paying attention to any of the tech stuff out there, the optimized defaults especially for these Intel CPUs, the 13 series and the 14 series, they're garbage. They're just dumping volts into the system and basically just kind of brute forcing the numbers, which all it does is create a bunch of heat to where even on a custom water loop, I was getting up to 95C, which is insane on a CPU, on a custom loop. That is insane, because that's not a weak loop back there. That is a custom loop with two 360 mil radiators. Okay, like I've got, I don't even know how, a dozen fans in there, like high pressure, high volume fans. Like, I shouldn't be having those issues. So what I did was I spent about a day and a half, 2 days playing with the BIOS and my overclock. What I did was I ditched the optimized defaults. I undervolted the CPU, and then I did an all-core clock of 5.3 on the power cores and 3.8 on the E cores. I could probably go higher, but this was the most stable and it does the best for heat. And right now you might hear my fan. It gets really hot in my office, really hot. So I want to minimize heat. All right, so that's what I finally got with my system, and it started working. Then my stuttering was still there, although it was improved, but it was still there. The next thing that happened was I discovered that my monitors, and if you have stuttering issues and you've been trying different things and you can't figure out what the problem is, you might have the same issue that I have, which is my monitors, although they were marketed as being 1 millisecond on the response time, they were not set to 1 millisecond. But on my monitors, there's a setting that says in the actual monitor settings, like if you press the buttons below the monitors, where I could choose different response times. I had it set to the FPS setting for the gaming, which you would think like, oh, that'll be the highest. No, it wasn't. So I had to go in there and I had to change the actual settings on the monitor itself. Once I did that, then I started to see my stuttering go away. Now, let me get back in here and start playing with my settings in iRacing. And when I started doing that, that's when I started to really see the massive improvements. And that's what has led to this video series. So now that we've got all that history and context out of the way, let's take a look at this stuff because, like I said, it is really, really interesting. All right, so what we're looking at here is Cap Frame X. This is a benchmarking tool that I use to measure the FPS, and it gives you not just your average FPS, but it also gives you your 1% lows and your 0.2% lows. This is really important because this is where you find stuttering, okay? If we go here and we click on variances, you can see what we want is we want the least amount of variances possible. Variances are what is going to give you that stuttering. When we have a system, for example, right? Maybe it can get up to 220 FPS. Awesome. But if you're 0.2% lows will drop down to 50, that's a massive drop. We don't want that because that's where we're going to get that stuttering. We want not only high FPS, but we want it to be smooth and consistent across the board. All right. So this is what really led me down this rabbit hole. Okay, so first things first, the INI files, what we call that, or the app any is a lot you'll hear people call it. And where this is if you want to go to your computer, you go to Documents, then iRacing, then scroll down. You're going to see a bunch of these files. And down here at the very bottom, you can see we have Render DX11. Then we have DX11 Monitor, Oculus, OpenVR, and OpenXR. Whatever one that you use, that's what you want to select. So for example, I'm on Monitor, so I'll double click this and open it up. And what you'll get is you'll get this. It'll be opened up on like a notepad. What you want to change, okay, are these right here. You see where it says compressed texture suits, compressed textures helmets, compressed textures cars, and compressed vertices. If you look over here to the right, you'll see block compress recommended. This, maybe a few years ago, back in the day, you needed to do this, okay? I tested this with these compressed and with them not being compressed. It does nothing. All right, it did nothing for my system. In fact, having them uncompressed was smoother, and it actually was only smoother, but looked better. Okay, so if you put these to 0, what this will do is it'll make everything look much, much better. So what does this look like? What does compressed look like versus uncompressed? Well, let's take a look here. So as you can see here, this is compressed paints. See how this looks. See how the line here, it's not complete. See how it looks like you got this black bleeding through here, and it looks super jagged, right? The color bleeds through. It just doesn't look good. Everything looks blocky and chunky. It just doesn't look good. That's what happens when it's compressed. And keep in mind, you are looking at this on a 2K monitor with the graphic settings were completely full. Please forgive this right here. It happened to be in the image. If you look at it without it being compressed, see how much smoother that is? Look at how much smoother that is. It's not even a comparison. There's zero comparison. This looks way, way better. And not only does it look better, but it plays better. If we go to, and you look at uncompressed versus the compressed versus uncompressed. So uncompressed is going to be the top one right here. Compressed is down here, right? Almost identical. Almost identical. Triple monitors, triple 2K monitors, max settings, almost identical. And if you look at our variances, the uncompressed was smoother. Now, why is that? Because this is something that happened over and over and over in my testing. It's smoother because it's more consistent. When you have a bunch of uncompressed cars on the track, your GPU is working hard, your CPU is working hard, everything's working hard, but it's working consistent. When it's not, or when it is compressed, right, it doesn't have to work as hard, you get these spikes. And this is what we're seeing, where it's going to be super fast, and then you come around, now all of a sudden you got a bunch of cars, and it's boom, it's dropping down. It's like a hit. It's like hitting a wall. So I saw this with a ton of the settings. First up, baseline max. Baseline max is all the settings maxed out. So if we look here, we had graphics. The MSAA samples were at 8x, but everything was high and maxed out, okay? The numbers that we saw were abysmal, all right? FPS, average 67.4. 1% lows, we were dropping to 56.1, and our 0.2% was down below 45, 43.9. The game was horrible. It was absolutely horrendous to watch. If you look at that, just compared to the exact same settings, but putting our MSAA to 4x, it doubled our FPS. Not only did it double the FPS, but if you look at our variances, look at how much smoother that is. Keep in mind, we want these to be we want as much blue as possible. If you're getting red, it's stuttering. So just by going from 8x to 4x, we doubled our FPS. If you look at it with it off, 0x, if you compare 8x to 0x, we almost tripled it, okay? That's insane. It was a 213% increase in our average FPS. That's incredible. Not only that, if you look at what it looks like, so if we look at this, you can see right here, this is with it at 8x. You can see how jagged this is right here. You can see this right here. See how jagged this is? See this shadow right here? See how jagged that is? Okay. Now, on 0x, see that shadow? It looks the same. It looks identical. See that shadow compared to the shadow below? This down here, 8x, this up here, 0x. This shadow over here, 0x, 8x. They're identical. They're the same. There's no improvement. Zero. So MSAA put this to 0. Okay? Put it to 0. There's no reason to have it on. Maybe in the future, iRacing will improve their anti-aliasing, right? Or their MSAA samples. Right now, don't do it. It's not worth doing. Next one, dynamic objects. Okay, so you remember we talked about earlier in this video, I said previously before, the biggest hit to your system was going to be the shadows, the dynamic object shadows, which for those of you who don't remember, that's these settings right here, okay, where you see where it says object self-shadowing, and then right here we have dynamic objects. You can turn them off in main view, which is just in front of you, or in main and mirrors. I go with the in main and mirrors. I do that because for me, the higher the settings, the better. All right, my system is so I learned that my system is so strong that when I start turning stuff down, I actually bottleneck my CPU. That's how powerful these damn graphics cards have become, is that I can bottleneck a 13900K. It's specifically, or I should say, especially when it comes to iRacing, because iRacing is a DirectX 11. If you don't know the difference between like DirectX 11 or Vulkan or DirectX 12 and stuff like, it has to do with the scheduling. It's super complex. I just know that for the most part, what it means, DirectX 11, I think I'm getting this correct, is that it's single threaded. So everything's got to pass through, basically, like, think of it as like one lane. If you got a bunch of stuff trying to go to that one lane, it can back up, even as something as strong as my 13900K or like a 14900K. All right. So having this stuff higher for me personally makes a big difference. Now, when we look at the numbers here, all right, keep in mind these settings up here with the MSAA at 0x, these high numbers up here, that is with dynamic objects on. So every time I ran a test, I would do one setting, turn it off or lower it, run the test. I would always run it twice and then do an aggregate of those two tests. Then if the next time I was going to test something else, I would turn that setting back on and then turn the next one off. Each setting was done individually. If we look at the numbers here for dynamic objects, you can see that the dynamic objects gave us a nice bump in FPS. So it still has a good hit on your resources, on your system. For myself personally, when we get into the variances, the shadowing still seems to have, or the lack of shadowing seems to have an effect on my system. It was better for me in terms of consistency to leave the shadows on. But if you are somebody who is lower in the FPS range, you might find that dynamic objects, turning those off, can help you. Now, it does have an effect though visually. You can see here, just in the cockpit, this is dynamic shadows off. And then if I turn them on, now you can see the difference. See that difference? Way darker, way more shadows. It definitely adds far more visually, but it is something that'll give you a good bump in terms of your FPS. For me personally, I would rather have the shadows. And like I said before, I need my settings higher because of the system that I have. Okay, now I understand not everybody has a system that is, you know, that has the components in it that I have, which is why I wanted to go through all this stuff. Okay, so dynamic shadow is definitely a big one. When we start getting into other settings, this is where we saw a lot more in terms of consistency and FPS. So your big ones, dynamic shadows, big. Also, the MSAA was huge. Just like I said before, turn that off. The other really big one was your night shadow maps. Okay. So if we look at in terms of shadows, I should say, night shadow maps is the other one in terms of shadows. If we look at our night shadow maps on and off, what you can see here is this number down below. This is with night shadow maps on. This is with night shadow maps off. Now you can also see, if we look at our variances here, pretty close. Night shadow maps off, the variances are definitely better. And this is really, really important. Visually, there's almost no change. You can see here, night shadow maps on. This is full on, okay? If we go to this off, no difference. Zero difference, okay? If we look at a different part of the track, all right? Different part of the track, night shadow maps on, night shadow maps off. It's the same. And keep in mind, the night shadow maps setting, you have to turn it on or off, leave the session, and then come back for it to take place, which is what I did. And as you can see, no change. If there is a change here, it is so small, you're not going to notice it, especially in real-time racing, okay? So night shadow maps is definitely something that I would recommend to people. Turn off. Turn it off. You don't need it. It just sucks up resources, and it's not going to really help you in any way, unless you're someone like myself, where you need the settings to be higher because it helps your system be smoother, okay? Okay, now the last settings that I did in terms of shadows, okay, and keep in mind we're going to have another video where we're going to cover all the other settings, you know, pit objects, cars, all the other stuff like that. But the last settings that I did in terms of shadows was SSAO and the anti-aliasing. So every test that I ran where it says BM, which is baseline max, we used SMAA for anti-aliasing. If we look at iRacing's description here, it'll say, change how smoothly images are displayed. FXAA offers good smoothing at low cost to performance. SMAA offers superior quality smoothing at a higher cost than FXAA. I ran everything with SMAA. There's also this one down here, SSAO, which is screen space ambient occlusion. So for example, you can see here what we've got here on screen. If we go here and we turn this off, you can see it's slight. See how light it is here? And if we turn this back on, see how it darkens a little bit? It just adds a little bit more shadowing, and it's more of a depth type of thing with the shadowing. All right, the FXAA is supposed to offer better, it's supposed to offer good smoothing, but it's going to cost you less performance. So when we tested those, all right, first, our top here, that is baseline max with the MSAA off and everything else on. Next, we've got the with the FXAA instead of SMAA. All right, that is right here, number 2. You can see here, number 1, SMAA. Number 2, FXAA. Almost no difference in the system. The only difference, once again, and this is a common theme, is with the variance. If we look here on our variances, the FXAA is number 2. Oh, and then number 3 is the SMAA. So for my system, the SMAA was not as consistent in terms of the variances. On the variances, for whatever reason, the FXAA seems to be a little bit smoother in terms of the playability. In terms of the visuals, I noticed no difference. Zero difference, okay? I mean, we're on SMAA right now. Does that look smooth right there? You know what I mean? Like, I noticed no difference. So, running FXAA seems to be a little bit smoother in terms of the playback, all right? In-game play when it's live and also on replay, all right? And in terms of the visual quality, I noticed no difference. Now, the SSAO, the screen space ambient occlusion, I know we got a lot of acronyms going on right now, that did offer us a little bit of a change. In fact, that gave us our highest FPS. So if you turn that off, it actually increased the FPS by a couple of frames. Okay, so down here, 143, this is where we've got SMAA on, SSAO on. If we turn the SSAO off, it gave us an increase of about 4 FPS. It also improved our, as you can see here, our stuttering, our 0.2% lows. And then if we went to FX instead of SM for our anti-aliasing, once again, it's right there. Consistency is a little bit better, okay? So those are two settings that if you are noticing issues with stuttering, all right, these are two things that you could look at. The SSAO, you could turn that off, and then also on anti-aliasing here, go to FXAA instead of SMAA, all right? And you might notice a little bit better playback in terms of it being smoother, okay? All right, you guys, so that is going to do it all for video 1. We covered a ton in this video just with the shadows and the anti-aliasing stuff. In the next video, part 2, we're going to dive into all of the other options, right? So like, you know, the car detail, pit objects, you know, all of those other settings and stuff like that. And you're going to see with those, once again, visually, it's going to be, for me at least, it was better to have them turned on and turned on high than it was to turn them off. It actually caused me more issues on a lot of those things to turn them off, but you'll see that in the next video. So that's going to do it. I hope this video helped you. Remember, overall settings, right now, shadows, turn them on, crank them up. Night shadow maps can have a big effect. Turning those off will help your FPS, and it doesn't hurt you visually. Turning on FXAA instead of SMAA can help you with it being smoother, okay, more consistent. SSAO can help, you know, turning that off can help it be smoother, and you're not going to lose a whole lot in terms of visual quality. And then the whole MSAA samples, just turn that off. Put it on 0. Don't mess with it. It's garbage, right? It doesn't do anything. And then dynamic objects can give you a big bump in FPS, but for me personally, my system's more consistent with those turned on. Yours might be different, all right? So hope that helps you guys. You know, like I said, I did a bunch of testing, spent a ton of time on this. I hope this helps you. If it did, please, you know what to do. Leave a like down below. Hit that like button, subscribe, all that other good stuff. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. So thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And until next time, I want to wish you good luck, good racing. Take care.